All right, so lately I've gotten a couple of messages from folks saying things like, hey, thanks for doing these videos. I'm super busy and I can listen to this and it's much more convenient to me than reading books. Convenient for me. I want to highly discourage you from sending me messages like that or making comments like that. If that's the case, that's fine and use it to your advantage. But here's why you shouldn't say things like that to me. Um, so there are rules that come with, uh, well, everything that comes from God. Um, and um, as far as revealing things goes, there are specific rules. And um, we read, for example, in Alma 12 what some of those rules are. And what is given has to be bounded by the heed and diligence of the people to whom it's given. And because of what I do and how I do it, I have certain liberties in this, but I am bound by rules and principles. Um, and so uh, I have reasons by which I'm able to make these videos. And I have to do things in a certain way, and I have to keep things in a certain place in my priority list for each day. And I have to pay prices that aren't, none of this is visible to the outside or understandable to others, which is fine. It doesn't need to be. I mean, the mechanism by which I do these things and these rules by which I'm bound. But um, when you say, hey, I'm not willing to sacrifice the time required to read the books you've written, so I'm glad you're making these videos because it's a way I can access at least some of that without making the sacrifice to read the books. That is providing evidence which makes it more difficult for me to continue doing this. So even if it's true, you should keep that to yourself. Things that make it easier to make these videos are things like, hey, I read what you wrote about that topic and I heard you say something and it was orthogonal, but in a weird way, it catalyzed greater understanding. So because of this video, I understand topic X better than I did, even though I read what you wrote about it in this one book. Or I've read all your books, but I never understood this in that way, or I don't really remember you talking about this, and this is great. Stuff like that is in the column of evidence for why I should continue to do this. The best reason of all would be, I didn't really have a reason to believe there's anything worth reading in your books, and I saw this video, and it's given me evidence to suggest that maybe that'd be worth my time. And I'm not a reader, but I'm going to read this book anyway. Okay, so here's some serious stuff. So with that disclaimer, a caveat, that emphasis, there will come a time when you do not have access to things like these videos. There will come a time when there's no internet. There will come a time when there's no electricity. There will come a time where channels like this, I don't mean YouTube channels specifically, but that's included, media channels are closed to these types of messages. That is going to happen, and unless you're going to die really soon, you will live to see it happen. And maybe that sounds like a crazy thing to say, but it probably seemed crazy when I told you several years ago that, quote, a super flu from China was coming. So, with evidence comes reasons to believe. I'm telling you this, and I know this. I told you guys who read, the readers of my blog, I told you many times that it would not be around in its present form forever. And when I decided to pull the posts that I did, there was this big surprise. I told you exactly what was going to happen before it did. I'm telling you that if your level of sacrifice to God to learn more about Him consists of listening to something in the background while you go about your day, you're not going to make it. I'm just telling you that right now. And the goal, when I say make it, I don't mean survive, although I know a lot of people, that's where their heart is. I'll just tell you right now, heaven is an acquired taste. And if you're at that level of sacrifice, you're not going to want to be around when the dust settles. It's not going to be what you consider in your mind what heaven would be like. It will not be attractive to you. But it's time. When I say you're not running fast enough, you know, if you had the slightest idea of what it takes to write this stuff, you'd see how ridiculous it is to say, I don't have time to read it. The ratio is enormous of cost to write versus cost to read. So every time you say things like that, you're invoking the justice of God against you. And I advise you not to do that, because there's only so much someone can pay to intercede for that. And when you exceed that capability, you have to be cut off. And it's not a punishment thing, it's just the Spirit of God cannot strive with man beyond a certain point. It violates the laws of heaven. So there's 2 points to this. One, don't send me these messages saying, thanks for making it easier for me to access this stuff through videos, because I'm not willing to pay the price to do it fully. And 2, it's time to be willing to pay the price. There's only so much you can receive without paying the price. So take that to heart. There's a book coming out on the justice of God, and that will explain these things more fully, but you've been warned.